Hello and good afternoon, good morning friends. Welcome to the CEC Reset live lecture. Dear friends, as you know that we are carrying a series on marketing management and so far numerous lectures have been conducted for you. So dear friends, in this session today we are going to talk on market segmentation. We are going to understand the exact meaning of segmentation and how segmentation helps in marketing. As well as we are going to discuss on profiling using SPSS. What is SPSS? I know you might be thinking about it, so no need to worry because we would be asking this very first question from our expert, and today's expert is also very keen to deliver a lecture on this particular topic. Dear friends, we have again with us in our studios Dr. Subhash Kakkar. Dr. Kakkar is an eminent academician, and with the help of these Reset lectures, he keeps on delivering, he keeps on exchanging and sharing information. He visits various universities and college for delivering lectures. I hope that his experience in the field, in the area of academics, help us to understand more and more on the topic segmentation and profiling using SPS. So first of all, I would like to welcome our guest, Dr. Subhash Kakkar. Dr. Kakkar, welcome to the Reset lecture.
Thank you and welcome viewers to today's lecture. As you know that we are conducting a series of lectures on the subject marketing management. A number of lectures have already been delivered to help the viewers to understand this important topic and the important subject marketing management. As you know that we have already covered STP, segmenting, targeting and positioning in our earlier lecture, and we have received queries from our viewers, and we know they want to know that is there any software which can be used to carry out this process of STP. Today we shall be discussing one or two software which are used by marketing people to take care of segmentation. I want to remind you the meaning of segmentation. Let's recall our earlier lecture where I told you the marketing function is to launch a product to satisfy the customers. For doing that, the marketing people must know the target customers or the target audience who are going to buy the product. In the market, we have customers with different profiles. Some are educated and some are uneducated, and some are highly educated. Some belong to urban area and some belong to villages. So, for that particular, we want to segment the customers in the profiling section, and we want to know who are the customers who are going to buy the product on one side, and one side we want to target only those customers for which we have manufactured the product or we have decided the products of our service. For that, marketing people administer a questionnaire. In the questionnaire, a number of questions are asked from the customers, and this questionnaire is then compiled, data taken for any software, and then it is analyzed. Then we get the groups of people who are giving a particular answer to a particular question. With that, we segment the target audience. SPSS is a software, statistical package for social sciences is the full form of SPSS. And this software comes to our rescue when we want to carry out targeting process with respect to marketing function. There is one more software, MINITAB, that is also used for the same process. I will try to discuss both these softwares, and I will try to tell how these software are operated, and then we make use of them for the segmentation process. Why segmentation? Used by retail and consumer product companies trying to learn about and describe their customers' buying habits, gender, age, income level. And these are some of the parameters based on what we shall be targeting our target audience. These companies tailor their marketing and product development strategies to each consumer group to increase sales and build brand loyalty. A valuable approach in marketing research, and SPSS offers some useful tools to facilitate this commercial process. This particular topic is used by marketing research people for targeting their customers. Segmentation in SPSS. I have already told you the full form of SPSS, Statistical Package for Social Sciences. Most of the techniques for segmentation and profiling are exploratory. There is no right or wrong answer, and the results are open to interpretation. And trying to make sense of the data or find patterns, iterative techniques. If it does not make business sense, then it is not a good model. And these are some of the facts we keep it in mind while we are carrying out the process of segmentation. Again, segmentation in SPSS techniques include factor analysis, principal components analysis, hierarchical clustering, k-means cluster, nonlinear principal components analysis. The new two-step cluster, and in this diagram I have shown cluster analysis, categories, factor analysis and discriminant analysis, and now I am going to add exploratory and then confirmatory also, and answer tree. And these are some of the parts of analysis which can be used for carrying out segmentation process. Which test to use now? I have shown a number of tests, then finally what and which test gives us the best results. Factor analysis. This particular analysis is used to find out patterns within variables. And categories, use if data does not fit assumptions for factor analysis. There are certain assumptions and those should be there to use factor analysis. If those assumptions are not met by the data, then we use categories. Cluster analysis, to find patterns between individuals. So, first was within variables we use factor analysis, and then if between individuals we use cluster analysis. Two-step clusters, to use with both categorical and continuous variables. Discriminant analysis, to look for differences between groups. Try to predict target variable. Answer tree, combinations of data to predict target, and these are certain methods. So, whatever is our requirement and the data, the type of data, then we decide which particular method is to be used for segmentation. Multivariate analysis is also used, and these techniques are interrelated, but do not have to use all of them. We will use one of them for our process and for our requirement. And these can be used, and we can have combination of these techniques to segment the data. Main considerations, What are the main considerations we are going to discuss now? Looking for patterns or trying to make predictions. Levels of measurement of the data categorically or continuous. Sample size, missing values, and does data fulfill assumptions for the required test? Before you start, check your data again and again, because it is like this: garbage in, garbage out. The quality of data, if it is good, our results will also be good. If the quality of data is bad, our results will also be bad. So, it depends upon the data and its quality, the nature of results what we get. Handling missing data. Check before analysis for any patterns within missing data. Check before analysis that missing values are defined as missing, otherwise may compromise the model. Be aware that most segmentation techniques ignore any cases with missing values, so many have less usable data than you think. Variable and value labels. It is worth checking the labels on your file. SPSS may truncate long variable and value labels in the output, making it difficult to interpret the output. And make sure all the useful information is at the beginning of the variable and value labels. So, even if they are truncated, the output is still easy to read and easy to understand. And these are certain precautions which are to be taken with the data and entering of the data. Data coding. Check the direction of the coding scheme and maybe consider recoding the data if the codes are counterintuitive. That is, if have a rating scale that ranges from high to low rather than low to high. Those type of corrections must be made before starting the analysis. It can be difficult to interpret output and factor scores, etc., once the data has been through several transformation and transformations. Sample data. Let us see this slide. Data usage of underarm deodorants for men. Now, we are discussing the deodorants used by men, and I have taken 3 deodorants, and because of the restrictions of this channel, I am not naming those deodorants. Just I have mentioned R brand, B brand and C brand. There are 3 deodorants which are being discussed here in this particular example. 3 brands tested are R the current market leader, B the second most popular and C recently launched product. Okay, brand usually use frequency within a sample. Number of people using these brands are checked and their frequencies are checked. R AP spray and R roll-on. There are 2 types of deodorants provided by the brand R. Frequency for first case is 1013 and for the second case it is 624, and corresponding percentages are 39.5 and 24.3. Similarly, the deodorant B brand AP spray and roll-on 441 and 140, corresponding percentages are 17.2 and 5.5. C brand AP spray 278 and roll-on 71 frequencies, corresponding percentages are 10.8 and 2.8. Total frequency is 2567, making it 100%, and this is given by the SPSS software. Profiling the customers now. is not selling as well as was hoped, so the research aims to find out. The brand C is not selling as well as was hoped, so the research aims to find out what is buying, who is buying C brand, and what sort of characteristics do they share, and who is buying the other deodorants, test it, and how might the market campaign be changed to ensure that the correct market is targeted. In this particular example, 3 brands are checked, data collected on 3 brands R, B and C, and we find that the C brand is the least selling brand of the deodorant, and we want to know what are the characteristics which C is not providing to the customers, that is why the sale is low. Who are the customers who are interested in buying the C brand, and who are the customers who are not interested in buying the C brand, and this will be done through segmentation only. Data collected. Ratings of a range of lifestyle attribute questions. A number of questions are asked to the customers buying these brands of deodorants. For example, I tend to own the most up-to-date products. Then my family is most important thing in my life. I prefer to dress and entertain casually. And similarly, 34 of these questions are asked to the customers and they have replied. So, questionnaire is administered. Demographics, which are being discussed, types of customers, age, type of work, exercise, etc., and brand of deo usually used, and how see yourself in relation to others, that is what makes you distinctive from your friends. So, these sort of questions are asked in the questionnaire so that we get to know what is the reason for the C brand to have the least sale in the market. Segmentation, the steps now. Run principal components analysis on attribute rating questions to see if any underlying dimension in the variables. Check using discriminant analysis to see if these dimensions help predict brand used. Run cluster analysis to see if can find similarities between cases, then decide if other variables need to be included, that is categorical demographics. Run two-step cluster using all variables. Now, we will explain factor analysis. In the factor analysis, we shall be using the software SPSS. Factor analysis allows us to look at groups of variables that tend to be correlated to each other and identify underlying dimensions that explains these correlations. There are so many variables and we are to group those variables in such a way that those who are moving in one direction, those should be grouped in one factor, those moving in some other direction may be collected in some other group, and then we will have groups of variables moving in one direction, and then we will relate these groups to the demographics and we will decide our target audience. Some terms defined now. When we carry out the factor analysis, we come across certain terms which are being explained now. The first one is Bartlett's test of sphericity. It is a test statistic used to examine the hypothesis that the variables are uncorrelated in the population. In other words, the population correlation matrix is an identity matrix. Each variable correlates perfectly with itself, where we get r is equal to 1, but has no correlation with other variables r is equal to 0. We want moderate correlation between the variables. We do not want very high correlation, and we do not want any zero correlation also. When we find highly correlated variables where r is close to 1, in that case the meaning is out of these two variables we can keep only one variable in our study. When there is no correlation at all, the correlation coefficient is close to 0, then there is no meaning in having factor analysis because the variables are not correlated. We want some moderate correlation between the variables so that they can be grouped in one factor. Correlation matrix now. A correlation matrix is a lower triangle matrix showing the sample and a simple correlation R between all possible variables and the pairs of variables included in the analysis. It is also known as R matrix. Communalities. The communality is the amount of variance a variable shares with all the other variables being considered. This is also the proportion of variance explained in the common factor. This is again a common variance among the variables, and this is given by the score communality, and this is given by SPSS software. Eigenvalue. The eigenvalue represents the total variance explained by each factor. Then factor loadings. Factor loadings are simple correlations between the variables and the factors. Factor loading plot. A factor loading plot is a plot of the original variables on all factors extracted. Factor matrix. A factor matrix contains the factor loadings of all the variables on all the factors extracted. And the factor scores. Factor scores are composite scores estimated for each respondent on the derived factors. Then is the term KMO, Kaiser-Meyer-Olkin, measure of sampling adequacy. We want to know whether our sample is adequate or not to carry out factor analysis, and then KMO statistic is calculated using SPSS. The Kaiser-Meyer-Olkin KMO measure of sampling adequacy is an index used to examine the appropriateness of factor analysis. High values between 0.5 and 1.0 indicate factor analysis is appropriate. Values between or values below 0.5 imply that factor analysis may not be appropriate for the data under consideration. So, we are looking for values between 0.5 and 1.0. Any value like 0.7, 0.75 is acceptable and highly suitable for carrying out factor analysis. Percentage of variance. This is a percentage of the total variance attributed to each factor. When we include factor after factor, the total variance explained changes. So, any factor included, then the cumulative variance gives us the total variance being explained by all the factors which have been included in the model so far. Residuals. Residuals are the differences between the observed correlations as given in the input correlation matrix and the reproduced correlations as estimated from the factor matrix. Scree plot. A scree plot is a plot of the eigenvalues against the number of factors in order of extraction. Factor rotation now. All these terms we shall be using in SPSS. When we conduct SPSS, all these terms will be used and will have a specific meaning. Improving interpretation. Rotation is used to discriminate between factors. Once factors have been extracted, it is possible to calculate to what degree variables load onto these factors. That is, calculate the loading of the variable on each other. Types of rotation. Types of rotation: orthogonal. Orthogonal means unrelated. Before rotation, all factors are independent, that is, they do not correlate at all. Oblique. In oblique rotation, the factors are allowed to correlate. Orthogonal rotation. Under orthogonal rotation, we have three types. Varimax. Varimax attempts to maximize the dispersion of loadings within factors. Quatermax. Quatermax rotation attempts to maximize the spread of factor loadings for a variable across all factors. And then Equamax. Equamax is a hybrid of the other two approaches. Oblique rotation. Oblique rotation, correlation between factors is permitted. Tract oblimin. High correlation among factors is not allowed. Degree to which factors are allowed to correlate is determined by the value delta. The default value for delta in SPSS is 0. In case the value is close to 1, then we expect factors highly correlated. Promox for large data sets. Value of determinant of correlation matrix. When we conduct SPSS and we ask for correlation matrix, we must ask for the determinant of the correlation matrix also. Value of determinant of correlation matrix is more than 0.0001. It shows that the problem of multicollinearity is not there. Factor analysis, what is it now? It looks for relationships between continuous variables based on correlations. In this case, attribute rating questions are the variables. Derives underlying constructs or dimensions in the data. Tries to reduce a large number of variables to a small number of factors which explain most of the variance in the data. This process is also said data reduction, because so many number of variables are reduced to only a few number of factors, one factor constituting a number of variables. It can't interpret the resulting solution, then it is of no good to us. Run principal components analysis on 34 rated attributes which we have already discussed. For the deodorant example, the best solution produced 9 factors interpreted below. We had 34 variables. When we conducted SPSS, these were converted to 9 factors only, because variables were grouped together forming different factors, and then we have named these factors according to the variables they include. Factor 1 we have named high computer use. Factor 2 rules need to conform. Factor 3 party animal, and F4 means factor 4 family man. F5 likes new products and experiments. F6 likes pampering, pays more for trusted brands. Factor 7 cautious, follower rather than leader for new products. There is a contrast between factor 5 and the factor 7. As we have seen, factor 5 the customers like the products and they want to experiment with the new product. But the factor 7, the reverse is there. Customers are cautious and they are followers and they are not the leaders. And customers in the factor 5 are the leaders. They want to try the new product. Factor 8, relaxed, casual, and factor 9, home loving. And these are the factors and these are given in the chart. Factor analysis results. Factors are good at predicting R usage, but not at differentiating between B and C. So, try instead investigating relationships between cases using cluster analysis, and options for clustering are hierarchical cluster, k-means cluster, and two-step cluster. Hierarchical cluster is now being demonstrated. This is often thought of as the proper cluster method, looking for natural groupings within the data. Basis groupings upon the similarity or dissimilarity between cases rather than variables. So, this is being considered the similarity or dissimilarity between the cases, not the variables. This is often thought of as proper cluster method, looking for natural groupings within the data. Basis groupings upon the similarity or dissimilarity between cases rather than variables, and very iterative technique, time consuming also. Now, look at these variables, and these are the cases, and the stars are the cases, and they are grouped together, and where we do not have grouping and some of the cases are isolated also. The topmost cross is isolated and the bottommost cross is also isolated. Top left have two cases together and they are grouped together. Then there is a big group, and within the group there are small groups and they are combined together. And this is the diagram of the different clusters of the cases. Decisions before cluster. Now, we will discuss some of the decisions which are taken before clustering. Which variables to use and which distance measure between cases to use. How much distance we can have to keep them in one cluster. So, that is to be explained and that is to be decided before starting the cluster analysis. Which criteria for creating clusters to choose? The quality of the analysis will always depend on the variables used. Cluster analysis will always find a solution. It is not possible to assess in the analysis itself how appropriate a variable is. Stages of hierarchical cluster. Select variables for analysis carefully. Now, the selection of variables is to be done very carefully. Those who are going to give us the results are to be included and others are to be ignored. Build and assess model now. Save cluster membership. If required, create cluster matrix for k-means. And because based on cases need to make sure data is measured on some scale, if not, data should be standardized. Run hierarchical cluster analysis on saved factor variables. Decisions with DO data, deodorant data now. I can't get a very good, that is useful to the business model from hierarchical cluster analysis. Also, I want to be able to include both categorical and continuous variables in the same model, and so I decide to use two-step cluster instead. Where exactly two-step cluster is to be used, it has been explained in the slide above, and in this slide we have written that I can't get a very good, that is useful to the business model from hierarchical cluster analysis. Also, I want to be able to include both categorical and continuous variables in the same model. So, I decide to use two-step cluster instead. So, now two-step cluster, we will explain it. Two-step cluster, the two-step cluster analysis procedure is an exploratory tool designed to reveal natural groupings or clusters within a data set that would otherwise not be apparent. So, this will tell us the grouping of the data when we carry out two-step cluster. The algorithm employed by this procedure has several features that differentiate it from traditional clustering techniques, and these are the ability to create clusters based on both categorical and continuous variable. This is a great advantage that we consider both categorical and continuous variables in our analysis. Automatic selection of the number of clusters, the ability to analyze large data files efficiently, and this is the scope of two-cluster analysis. Two-step cluster now, the use is scalable cluster analysis algorithm, and this algorithm can handle both the continuous and categorical variables or attributes and requires only one data pass in the procedure. The first step of the procedure pre-clusters the records into many small subclusters. Then it clusters the subclusters created in the pre-cluster into the desired number of clusters. If the desired numbers of clusters is known or unknown, specifically when it is unknown, two-step cluster analysis automatically finds the proper number of clusters. Again, we are discussing two-step cluster. This is unlike other clustering methods. In SPSS, if the desired number of clusters is unknown, two-step cluster analysis automatically finds the proper number of clusters. Or you can pre-specify the number of clusters required flexibility. This software is such a beautiful thing to operate. By default, it gives you number of clusters. If you are not satisfied with the number of clusters, what the software gives you, you can decide the number of clusters before analysis. You give your decision on the number of clusters to be achieved in the result, then this software gives you the clubbing based on your own number of clusters. This is unlike other clustering methods in SPSS. Here you decide about the number of clusters what you want. Run two-step cluster analysis on saved factor variables and categorical variables. And this is a result of the SPSS. Here there are windows for the two-step cluster analysis. On the right hand side, categorical variables. On the left hand side, window shows us the different variables which are included in the study, and these variables are transferred to the two windows. One is for categorical variables and the second window is for continuous variables. And here we are specifying where it is written number of clusters, specify fixed number of clusters. We want 6, so we have decided 6 and we have entered the value 6 in the window. And after this, the moment we OK it, the next slide will appear. Two-step cluster analysis, here again we have to decide within cluster percentage chart, cluster pie chart, we are ticking them, variable importance plot, rank of variables importance by variable we are clicking, and finally importance measure which is to be taken into account is chi-square or t-test of significance. So, we have clicked only chi-square or t-test of significance, and then finally, we have to click the continue button. Some of the output produced by the two-step cluster analysis is reproduced in the next few slides. So, in the next few slides, whatever result we have got is shown. Brand usually used by cluster. C brand, C spray seems to be associated with cluster 6, with the roll-on version being associated with the cluster 4 and 2, and this is mentioned in the cluster. Now, look at the result, brand use and brand usually use, percentages and the clusters are given 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and these are clusters, combined one is 100%. And similarly, employment status by cluster. Cluster 2, C brand, C and roll-on is largely made up of part-time, retired and not working respondents. Cluster 4 also has a high number of retired respondents, while cluster 6, C brand, C spray also has a high percentage of part-time and unemployed people. So, this is given by the result, this is shown by the result. Look at the cluster 2, where from I have got the results. Now, look at the percentages, and this group is consisting of part-time employment, not employed students and retired people. And age group by cluster. Now, we will discuss the age group. Cluster 2, C roll-on is largely made up of the younger and the older age groups. Cluster 4 also has a high percentage of older respondents. Cluster 6 is more from 25 years upwards, and this is shown in the analysis what we get from SPSS. Summary of findings now. What is the summary of the SPSS results? Profiling of this data suggests that C brand is not targeting the expected market. C is often not seen as sufficiently different from B. It has no perceived USP, unique selling proposition, and C is being used by a high percentage of older, retired and part-time or not employed consumers, which may be result of the aggressive product launch campaign with free samples, discounted prices, etc. And the C marketing needs some more work. These results are received from the analysis only, and the marketing function will make use of the analysis and start working on the guidelines which has been given by the SPSS software and its output. Summary of segmenting and profiling this data using SPSS. Principal components analysis helped investigate relationships between the rated attribute variables. Hierarchical cluster was used to try find similarities between cases using the factors derived from PCA. PCA is nothing but principal component analysis. Two-step cluster was then used to enable clustering of both continuous and categorical variables in the same model. Useful conclusions were drawn about the market positioning of C brand deodorant. Here now again one more example is being taken. To know the habits of people, questionnaire has been administered. When we go for marketing, the first statement is it is a fun. Then is a budget. When we go for marketing, we keep an eye on our budget also. Then are the eating habits. Some people like to go for fast food, some people like traditional food, and these habits are discussed in this particular question, which is part of our questionnaire. Next is best buy. People try to bargain and then they buy the product on the basis of best price. No care. People don't care about the price. They like the product and they buy the product. And then the saving, this particular variable is included to know what part of saving people are using for marketing of their needs and requirements. We go to the analyze part of the SPSS software, and then we decide what sort of clustering we are to carry out, whether it is two-step cluster, whether it is k-means, whether it is analysis tree, discriminant analysis, or principal component analysis. We click on the method we want to use for our analysis work. The moment we choose and click, we get the result as shown in the slide. Here on one and the extreme left window, all the variables are included, and these variables are to be transferred to the right hand side window. Only those variables will be transferred which we want to include in our study. So, in the variables, we will transfer only those variables which we want to keep in our study, and those will be transferred. We will select those variables and transfer to the window. The moment we do that, these will get transferred. So, in this particular case, we have decided to include all the variables, and these have been transferred to the variables window. Then label cases by cases or variables. We want to do the analysis based on the cases or on the variables. Definitely we want to do it on the basis of cases, so we will click on only on the cases. And then in the display part, there are two things which needs decision. One is the statistics, other is the plots. We have clicked both of them, statistics as well as plots. We will get the statistics as well as the plots. Now, only thing which is to be done is to press the OK button. The moment we click the OK button, another window comes. Here, minimum number of clusters and maximum number of clusters are being asked. We can give our decision on these numbers, and we have chosen minimum number of clusters 2 and the maximum number of clusters 4, and at the topmost right hand corner we have clicked the option, and now we have to press the continue button. The moment we press the continue button, we will get one more window. Here dendrogram is being asked, whether we require the dendrogram or not. Here we are clicking this option, we will get the dendrogram also as part of our results. Dendrogram is a diagram which shows us the combination of different variables in the form of clusters. And in the orientation we have clicked vertical. There is one more option, horizontal also, but here we have chosen the vertical option. The moment we click the continue button, we get another window. Here we have to decide about the distance part of the variables. After deciding this, again we have to press the continue button. Here different methods of distance are given, we have to choose one of them based on our requirement. After deciding about the distance part, we have to click the continue button. The moment we click the continue button, again we will get one more window. Here the cluster method is being asked. Here we have decided the wards method, and we are clicking on wards method, and then finally we have to do the pressing of continue button. The moment we press the continue button, we get the results, and these are the form of the results. Here we get clusters, cluster 1 and cluster 2 in the result area. How the clustering is done, this is shown in the table. Bottom of this table is also shown. Cluster 4, cluster 3, cluster 2 are also shown, and the clustering is done based on the cases, and this can be read from the table which is being shown. And this is a dendrogram. Dendrogram gives us the combination. Now look at the dendrogram and see it carefully. The first grouping is case number 14, case number 16, case number 10, case number 4, and case number 19 and case number 18. Then if we see minutely, case number 14, case number 16, case number 10, case number 4 and 19 are having separate cluster. Then these cases become part of the big cluster, including case number 18 also. And similarly, second cluster, case number 2, case number 13, case number 5, case number 11, case number 9 and case number 20, they form the second cluster. In the clusters, we have subclusters as given in the diagram. At the bottom, there is one more cluster shown, including case number 3, case number 8, case number 6, case number 7 and case number 12, case number 1. And these also have subclusters like cluster of case number 3 and 8, which is included in the big cluster. And this is a dendrogram showing the combination of cases in the clusters. Bottom portion of the cluster is also shown. This shows that the case number 14, case number 16, case number 10, case number 4, 19, 16 are part of one cluster. Individually, they have subclusters also. Now we'll show segmentation using MINITAB. MINITAB is a different software. Of course, we can make use of this software for our segmentation requirements. Here, data have been entered. After doing it, we are going to click on stats so that statistic software starts operating. After this, we are selecting the option of cluster analysis, and on what basis we are to carry out this cluster analysis is being selected in the second drop down menu. First drop down menu will get from stat, second drop down menu will get from the factor analysis. And after this, we have to select the variables which are to be included in the analysis, and variables are distance matrix, and these are to be transferred to the proper window for analysis, and number of clusters are to be decided. Here our variables are from C1 to C6, and variable transferred for analysis are C1 to 6. So, C1, C2, C3, C4, C5 and C6 have been included. and the distance measure what we have taken into our account is Euclidean method and linkages method is single. And this is a dendrogram with single linkage and Euclidean distance. Now look at this diagram. This is a dendrogram. One dendrogram we saw in the SPSS software and its output. This is another dendrogram of the same data achieved from using MINITAB. Now here we will see the combinations. On the right hand corner, bottommost, cases like 2, 13, 5, 11, 9 and 20 are included. Now look at the subclusters. Case number 2 and 13 are included in one subcluster. Case number 5 and 11 are included in second cluster. And altogether 2, 13, 5, 11 and 9, 20 are included in the main cluster. Now look at the left hand bottommost part of the diagram. Case number 1 is isolated as far as subclusters are concerned. Case number 6 and 7 are included in one cluster and 12 is again isolated. 3 and 8 are included in one cluster. Now looking at 1, 6, 7, 12 and 3 and 8, they are part of one big cluster. Even case number 17 and 15 are also part of one cluster. So 1, 6, 7, 12, 3, 8, 17 and 15 cases are included in one cluster. Now look at the middle portion of the diagram. Case number 4, 10, 14, 16, 19 and 18 are included in this cluster. Now 4 is isolated, 10, 14 and 16 are part of one subcluster, and this is the way the clustering is formed in the cases. So today viewers, I try to explain the use of two software. One is SPSS, other is MINITAB, for carrying out the segmentation process on the audience, on the target audience. And to know what clustering is there, what is the characteristics of our target audience, and this will help us in marketing the product. Thank you so much.
With this note, thank you sir, thank you so very much for giving us a very fruitful, very prolific session, and dear friends, we would be meeting again and would be discussing more on marketing management very soon. Till then, goodbye, take care. Thank you.
Thank
sir.
you.